All right. Erica, are we good to start? Are we unmuted? So yeah, we are. Okay, we're just going to get our presentation going. And are you able to see our screen that we've shared? London, I think you're one of our first participants today. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
That's that's the mute button, and then that's to turn your video off.
Hi.
Okay, they heard you. Put yourself on mute.
Thank you for checking in. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I know we're streaming on a couple of different places. So Erica, maybe if you can help facilitate some of the comments on YouTube and on Facebook, we're hoping to have a pretty good discussion today. So our topic is food and mood, listening to our bodies. And we have a table of contents for you guys today. So we're just gonna introduce who we are and hear what your name is and a little about you. We're gonna talk a little bit about what food and mood means. We're gonna talk about some messaging or messages that we might get about our bodies from different places like Instagram or TikTok, if y'all are familiar. And then we also are going to talk about listening to our bodies and some affirmations that we can use as people who have bodies, basically. And so before we introduce ourselves, I would love for London, if you would like to introduce yourself. Anybody else that's in the chat on Facebook and YouTube can put in a little introduction. And we'd also love for you to name a food or a meal that you've shared together recently.
My name is London and I'm 6 and I model.
You model. Wow. That's awesome. So what's a food that you've shared with your mommy recently, London?
Mac and cheese.
Yummy. Mac and cheese. That's a good one. Awesome. All right. And if we have any other introductions that come in, you can let us know, Erica. All right, so just an introduction for Samira and I. We are a SNAP Ed nutrition education program. So we work with schools, after school programs like Create Me, who we've been working with for almost a year now. We just talk about cooking and eating, gardening, things like that, just how to feed ourselves, learning about what we're eating, learning about how to grow things, how to create our own food. Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. Oops. All right. So our main topic today is food and mood. And we have a little quote included that gives us an idea of what it is. And London, you can let us know if you have any questions. Anyone else listening can let us know if y'all have any questions. But the quote says that there is a deep connection between how and what we eat and how we feel. Today, we will explore how what we eat can affect us in terms of our emotions, our mental health, and our physical health. By understanding the connections between food and all of these things, we hope that we can become more connected or more attuned to our bodies. Perfect. And so before we even get into how we can take care of our bodies, London, do you ever notice, like, if you haven't eaten all day, say like you didn't have time for breakfast in the morning, how do you feel by like lunchtime? Like, say, London, if you woke up and you had a very busy morning, you didn't have time to eat breakfast, how do you think you would feel by like 1 p.m. when it's time for lunch and you haven't eaten all day?
I would feel happy.
You think you'd feel happy if you didn't have much food until lunchtime? Do you think maybe you'd feel hungry? Probably hungry. Yeah. So maybe you would feel hungry. Maybe you would be a little cranky. I know if I don't eat breakfast and like I'm running around, I start to get cranky if I haven't eaten anything. So these are some tips, if you can see on the screen right now, of how we can be more in tune with our bodies, how we can take care of our bodies better. And it's through a couple of key ways. The first way we're going to talk about is choosing a variety. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about My Plate, the My Plate model. That's what is included in our 5 food groups. It's how our plates should look because we get different nutrients from all of the different foods that we eat. And, you know, we need different things from protein foods than we do from fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, what are the 5 groups that are included in the My Plate model, Miranda?
They are fruits, vegetables, protein, grains, and dairy. And we know some people don't choose to eat dairy. You can do dairy alternatives. They count as well. They have the same nutrients.
Yeah. Have you heard of the food groups, London? Have you heard of like My Plate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe in school. Cool.
Awesome.
So it's really important to eat from all of those food groups. I think that's, you know, how our plates should be built around. If you have lunch and you have maybe just some protein, maybe try to add a vegetable or fruit with that. You can do the same thing with your snacks and your other meals.
Yeah, we might love to eat like, what's your favorite fruit, London? Your favorite like, huh?
My favorite fruit is pineapples.
Pineapple? Okay, cool. So choosing a variety, our first tip is saying, even though we love pineapple and even though I love strawberries and even though you love blueberries, we can't just eat only pineapple, strawberries, or blueberries every single day for every day of the week, right? We have to choose a variety of different foods. So we're going to choose those from the different groups that Miranda talked about.
Right. And our second tip is going to be eat regularly. I think maybe for your mom and adults, maybe this is a little bit more common of us skipping meals. Maybe you're trying to get to work in the morning. Maybe you're trying to get your kids to school. You skip breakfast. Maybe sometimes you even skip lunch, but those can start to affect our bodies. Not only are we hungry, but you know, it can affect our mood in a couple of other ways. So it's really important to try to plan out meals, try to make sure that we're eating pretty regularly throughout the day.
I have a snack.
Oh, yeah. We were
Cool.
going to say that it's important to have snacks throughout the day because that's a part of eating regularly, right? Because not always, it doesn't always fit into our schedules or into our lifestyles to have 3 big meals. That's definitely not how I eat. I might have 1 or 2 big meals a day, but then I like to, you know, supplement those meals with snacks throughout the day that help me stay pretty like stable in terms of my mood.
And essentially it's keeping your blood sugar levels stable, which is going to affect, your energy, your mood, things like that. So if you're only getting 1 or 2 big meals a day, the rest of the day, there's nothing to support your blood sugar. So it's dipping, it's peaking, things like that.
Yeah. So you just grabbed a snack. Why is that? Did you feel hungry all of a sudden? Yeah. Awesome.
Well, that goes into our next clue or our next tip for food and mood. It's listening to body cues. So it says here, if we listen carefully, our body will tell us what it needs. Is your body hungry? Is it full? So we can even be on food, our bodies tell us when we're tired, when it's time to go to bed at night. Our bodies tell us when it's time to wake up in the morning, when it needs water. So if you listen to your body and say, by mid-morning, you start to feel that hunger, right, London? You have to feed it. And that also goes for listening to our bodies when it's full, when it's satiated, or when we have that full feeling.
Because sometimes if we don't listen to when we're full and we keep eating, what happens if you do that?
You won't be hungry anymore.
Yeah, you won't be hungry anymore. But then if we keep going past that, we might get too full. And sometimes that hurts our tummies. And that's not really a nice feeling to have. So we really want to listen to our bodies.
Sometimes you can't sleep at night when you're really full.
Yeah, because your body is so busy digesting. Sometimes it disrupts our sleep. And then it's not really great for listening.
Yeah, I think sugar is a good example
Mhm.
of that. If we're eating too much sugar late at night, it can keep us up and we don't sleep
Mhm.
well. So our last tip is going to be eat mindfully. And this is a little bit different from food and mood, but mindful eating, it's paying full attention to the experience of eating and drinking, both inside and out. So again, listening to those body cues, listening to when we're full, when we're hungry, but it's also using our senses. I
Mhm.
think we really like rush through foods a lot of times. Sometimes we're not paying attention while we're eating, we're watching TV, things like that. And we kind of miss some of those body cues. We miss, how does our food taste? What does it sound like? So paying attention to those things and slowing down a little bit is going to help us get more in tune with our bodies.
Yeah. So what are you eating right now, London, if you don't mind me asking?
Cookies.
Some cookies. Cool. So if you were to try to eat mindfully, one thing that I would encourage you to do is when you're chewing those cookies, try to tune into what you're hearing. So go ahead and take a bite and close your eyes and listen to what it sounds like when you're eating the cookie.
It looks like a pretzel.
Maybe like
Oh.
a pretzel, so maybe kind of crunchy. Yeah, cool. So it's really important for us to use our five senses. So to think about what the food we're eating looks like, tastes like, smells like, sounds like, all of these things. And you can do it just like you did with the cookies. All right. So moving forward, there is a food and mood connection. So we've talked a little bit about how to like some good food and mood tips. So now we're going to talk about the consequences of not eating regularly and not following all of those tips that we just talked about before. So here we have 3 different categories. Can you see the screen, London?
Oh, it's tiny though.
Tiny.
Is it tiny? Okay, so the 3 categories, the first one says physical, the second one says mental, and the third one says emotional. So what we're eating and how we're eating impacts us physically, mentally, and emotionally. Do you know the difference between those? Do you know how to tell between something that's physical and something emotional?
Mm-mm.
It's okay, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. So something physical, if it's affecting our bodies physically, maybe you are running and you fall down and you scrape your knee. You feel that, right? It hurts.
There might be some pain, some burning where the scrape is.
But it also might affect you emotionally. Your feelings might be hurt, or you might be upset because you fell and scraped your knee. You're upset that you're in pain.
Do you ever cry when you fall?
Sometimes,
Yeah, sometimes I do too. And so those two impacts, the physical impact would be that cut that you have, and then the emotional impact would be crying because the cut made you scared, maybe, or made you hurt.
I already got one. I already got scraped because when I was on my scooter at the park, I fell off it.
Ouch.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah, that hurts.
One time I got a paper cut.
Ooh, those hurt.
Yeah, so when we get things like paper cuts and scrapes, we definitely have a physical reaction and we have an emotional reaction. And then there's a third category that we're going to circle back to about food and mood, the mental reaction or connection. So whenever we're not eating regularly, or if we're eating, we're not getting a variety of foods, if we're not eating mindfully, things like that, we might have physical reactions or consequences, things like stomach aches, headaches. We might be tired, we might be dizzy, our bodies might feel weak, and we might feel very hungry. So if we're not eating enough or, consistently enough, those things might happen physically. Mentally, we might not be able to concentrate. London, you have seemed to step out of the screen, but for anyone else listening, I know when I'm not eating regularly, or if I haven't had, my combination of protein, fat, and carbs, then it's really hard for me to focus on the things that I'm doing. It's really hard for me to get my work done for my job. It's hard for me to have conversations with friends, things like that. And I definitely don't feel as creative. But those things differ from the emotional impact that not eating regularly or eating a variety of food does. The emotional impacts of that includes being anxious, feeling maybe cranky, sad, having a depressed or a lower mood, and being irritable. I know for sure I struggle with being very irritable when I haven't eaten. And sometimes we call that being hangry, right? Or being hungry and angry at the same time. All right, so we just talked about all of the consequences or the cons of the food and mood connection, things that happen when the bad things that happen or the consequences that happen when we're not eating regularly or eating the things that, give us great nutrients for our bodies. And then there's also the benefits of it. So on all of our different categories, we have a little verses section. And these things include the benefits of the food and mood connection. So physically, when we are eating regularly, when we're having our cookie snack like London is, we will be more energized. We will feel more well rested because we'll be able to sleep better if we've had enough food, and we'll be satiated. That means that we're satisfied, we're full, we feel like we've had enough nutrients. And then mentally, when we've had enough food, the right types of food for our bodies, we will feel clear and focused. We will be able to pay attention in class and at work, which is important for mothers, daughters, children, everyone, right? And then emotionally, we will have a well-balanced mood. That means not only will we be able to feel, sad when we need to feel sad, but we'll also feel happy, joyful, all of the things, a wide range and in a balanced way.
Yeah, I feel like we don't really think a lot about how food really affects our whole body and our whole, day. I think we usually just think, oh, if I don't eat, I'm going to be hungry. But
So
it's
much more.
really so much more. And, I think I have to think sometimes, when I'm feeling irritable or I just can't focus on my work, I have to think, have I drank water today? Have I had lunch? Have I had breakfast? And usually once I, try to meet those things, you feel better. You really do.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll stick to a certain food, and I know maybe I need to branch out and get some different nutrients in, and then I'll have some different benefits if I'm eating a variety of foods. All right. So London, this slide might be a little too old for you, but not really, because this stuff starts young. We wanted to include some stuff on harmful messages that we get from the media, things like social media, Instagram, Facebook, but also things like TV shows and movies, magazines, everything around us. And then also cultural messaging. So when we say cultural messaging, we mean messages that we get about anything. Right now we're focusing on bodies, but about anything from spaces like church, school, our home, and other places. So previously we've been talking about how our food and mood are connected and how we can stay attuned to our bodies. And these things, these harmful messages, Miranda and I feel like they might create some distancing between us and our bodies. They might, have harmful effects on the ways that especially young women are taught to listen to our bodies or taught to ignore them in some ways. So viewing and absorbing media and cultural messaging impacts the ideas that we have about our bodies without us necessarily knowing. These things like media and cultural messaging formulate how we believe our bodies should look in order to be considered normal, and also how we should treat our bodies in order to achieve a certain image. The impacts are felt across all ages, and they start very, very young. So even though you're only 6, London, maybe you've heard or felt some of these things about how your body should be as a young woman. All right, so this first question, we wanted to have a little discussion, and we'll see if we can have that here. We asked, and maybe you can think about the movies that you watch, London. You can think about the TV shows. You can think about how people around you talk about certain things, maybe at school, your friends, things like that. The question that we ask says, can you identify messages you receive about your body through the media and or culture? Consider things like Instagram and families, or any of the things that we talked about before.
Right. So I'm thinking about, especially for young kids, you know, like princess movies, you know, fairy tales. We see the princesses and they're beautiful and they look a certain way. And maybe that's reflecting back to us how we should look. You know, we want to look like these princesses. We want to, you know, reflect back to what we're seeing on the screen. And so that really does separate us from our bodies and listening to our specific needs for us.
So London, do you watch any movies? Do you have a favorite movie? What is it? You're on mute. Do you know how to unmute it?
Rapunzel.
Rapunzel? Okay, cool. Do you remember what Rapunzel looks like in the movie? What does she look like?
She has a purple dress and she has long blonde hair.
Yep, she has very long blonde hair.
She was stuck in a tower.
Yeah, she was stuck in a tower. All right, so for any of our other listeners and for you, London, as well, if we think specifically about, you know, Disney princess movies, recently, you know, they have been including different races, different ethnicities, things like that. But still, the types of bodies that we see in those movies are very thin. They're very beautiful in this Western kind of way, you know, smaller noses, things like that. And it's kind of teaching, you know, young girls like London and others about the way that bodies should look. All right. And so go ahead.
Because this is a mommy and me event, we just felt it was really important to bring these things up. I'm sure as mothers and, you know, as older women, I'm sure that we've all had an instance of where we were told by the media or told by someone, you know, how we should treat our bodies and how we should feed ourselves. And that's what we're really trying to bring up is,
and to challenge.
Yeah, you know your body best. You know when you're hungry, you know what it needs.
And you don't have to look a certain way. So even though we might see certain images like Rapunzel, who's thin and has long, you know, blonde hair, the way that we look is actually okay, and it's beautiful and it's accepted. And we wanted to make a note for any of the mothers who are listening now or who might listen in the future. And we know that you guys know this, but mothers who model an accepting relationship with their bodies help shield their daughters and themselves from the consequences of these harmful messages. So I know growing up, my mom, I'm actually like really proud of her for this. She taught me to accept my body the way it was. She never really commented on how my body looked other than that I was beautiful. And that's great. I love that. All right, so moving forward.
You have to click it, I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so we wanted to talk a little bit about positive affirmations. London, back to you. Have you ever done a positive affirmation? Or do you know what they are? No? Awesome. Well, we're going to talk about it today.
Yeah, so an affirmation is just something kind and caring that you can say to yourself. And, you know, through time, maybe you don't believe it the very first time you say it, but if you keep saying it to yourself, it's a good reminder and a good practice.
It affirms you.
Yeah.
It makes you feel good. It makes you feel whole. It really helps build your confidence and helps stay confident. If you're not, you know, if you don't have low confidence, it helps you stay there at a good, healthy confidence level.
So what we would love for anybody watching, London, if you want to do this with your mom after this presentation, we would love for you to create a positive affirmation together one about mindful eating or listening to your body. And decide on a good time to use that affirmation, maybe before dinner, maybe in the morning before you go to school.
All right. So an affirmation, for example, that I might say to myself, if I want to build confidence around eating, I might say to myself, I know how to listen to my body. And so before a meal, London, if I'm going to eat and I'm trying to build my skills around listening to my body cues, mindful eating, all of these things that inform our food and mood connection, I might close my eyes and think for a moment and say to myself, I know how to listen to my body. So that's one example. And then another example we have is, and this one's really sweet. Miranda wrote this one. I really love it, actually. It says, I love my body for telling me what it needs. London, can you say that with me if you want? Can you say, I love my body for telling me what it needs?
I
After you're
love
done
my
doing-
body for telling me what it needs.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
And that can
Thank
go
you.
for anything, you
Mhm.
know? Our bodies can tell us when it's time to cry. Our
Mhm.
bodies can tell us when it's time to take a nap, when it's time to go for a walk. I think that it's really special to be able to become more in tune with our bodies and to listen to ourselves because we know ourselves best.
Mhm. And our body is constantly telling us what it needs. We just have to listen to it. Yeah. All right, London, and anyone else who is listening, that is actually all we have today. So we just wanted to share some things with you about food and mood and learning how to listen to your bodies. And we really appreciate you listening today and engaging with us.
Do we have any questions?
We don't, and not on YouTube either. A lot of girls are on spring break. Thank you. Hey, London, and thank you.
Thanks, London.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Y'all have a great week. What's left
Okay.
of it?
Yeah.
Bye, Erica. We'll see you next week.
All righty.